these hearings and exactly what we're doing here. Okay, so welcome back for those that are watching at home. We are in the second half of our first day of the meetings, public hearings with reference to Scientology. We have heard a first witness was Mr. Ed Walters, who is a high-ranking official in the Church of Scientology. We also heard some opening remarks from our consultant, Mr. Michael Flynn. Right now, we'd like to again address questions directly to Mr. Walters, and after that we will ask Mr. Flynn to show some documents on the screen, and then we will get back into our second witness, which is Mr. DeWolf. We may not have time to conclude with Mr. DeWolf today or finish with him, so therefore, if that happens, we will ask him to come back tomorrow morning. Again, for those that are watching, we may be asking the same question many ways, and different commissioners may be asking the same question in different ways. We are doing this by design, and for the most part, trying to establish a record, for the record, of the activities that relate to the Church of Scientology in general, and specifically those in Clearwater. I'll just start. Mr. Walters, what is this OP sheet and routing form? Can you tell me about that, and how many people see it?
All right. In the Guardian's office, everything is done to exact orders. There is an order put out, and there is compliance. Hubbard designed what he calls a check sheet that lists if you have an operations, we'll say to follow a commissioner, it would put at the top of it the purpose for this. It would say step by step the exact duties. First correctly identify commissioner, establish resident, and then it will be a blank to who is to do this specifically. And when that person does it, there is a point where they sign it off that they have completed. That's called compliance. An order is given by Hubbard that shows compliance. And every step of the operations is done. It's usually a white piece of paper listing every step from the surveillance all the way through whatever the operation was. Every step is listed, who is responsible, and the person who does it signs it off.
How many people see this list?
Very few. Only the people in the Intelligence Bureau or the Guardian's office, the higher officials of the church, such as in Los Angeles or Clearwater.
All right, what exactly is a routing form?
A routing form is a form designed to take you step by step through the organization. There are all different kinds of routing forms. There's a brand new person routing form. If you came in for the first time, the reason that you would be hooked so well is because every step is laid out. You would first talk to the registrar. The registrar will sign that off. The registrar remembers to find your ruin, to see what's wrong with you, all the way through. Now, in the Guardian's office routing form, when they complete an operations, that is routed back up the lines, the communication lines, meaning from the Guardian's office in whatever city back to their senior, which will usually be Los Angeles. Los Angeles would route it to Flag, which is Clearwater, Florida.
You indicated earlier that they have a dossier on most people.
Yes.
Is this routing form or this sheet, OP sheet, could that also be used as a dossier for potential blackmail and etc.?
Yes. In fact, usually the first step of any operations is start folder. I mean, it sounds silly, but the guy's told to literally open a folder and put your name on it. I mean, no step is missed.
If everyone knows this, then why do you do it? You seem to perpetuate your own downfall. And who can you trust in the organization? And if you can't trust, then how and why is the organization so successful?
Very good question. Very good. I'll be honest with you. When I used to get mad at some things, I used to tell them what you just said. I went on an operations with Chuck Reese one time, and I saw him typing it up and sending it up the line, which would mean now would mean Los Angeles and Clearwater. At that time meant just Los Angeles or to England. And I'm telling you, got to be crazy. You're going to write all this stuff and say, this is nuts. But he says, Ron gives an order, he wants compliance. It's a great honor, see, to sign your name that you have complied with Ron's order. I mean, it's like points. I mean, it's, I followed 3 commissions today, you're in, man. I mean, you get a new typewriter or whatever you request that you need, you're liable to get it. Because you, and Ron is very shrewd. He doesn't want his GO members saying, I did this or I did that. He wants proof. And very interesting enough, he has proof because he can look at these operations and compliance orders and he knows how hard you're working. But you're right, sir. It is their downfall.
I don't know if you can trust your enemies. How do you trust your friends? And if your friends are your enemies, potentially the same people. The telex is used to distribute confidential files of criminal activities to various cities and groups. Can you tell us about the telex?
There's a telex system that is extensive throughout Scientology. Every major organization has a telex where they can deliver messages to Los Angeles, which are then sent to England, and also sent to wherever L. Ron Hubbard is. The last few years they were sent to Clearwater. Now what is sent on the telexes at the end of every week, the stats for every division are sent. You know, like 10 people in, $30,000 raised, 2 people completed course, 2 went on to their next course. All these types of stats. Ron was very into that. It means statistics. And you actually had a graph. The Guardian's office uses the telex systems in a coded manner. They have an elaborate code to send back questions concerning operations or whatever they're doing, and only the GO person knows the code, and that is sent to in the last few years, they would send coded messages to Clearwater and Los Angeles.
Okay, how do you think you're going to react? We asked you this earlier, but so the telex commands criminal. Does the telex command criminal activities to other cities and other states?
Yes.
Can you be given a job or to do something like to move from Clearwater and to commit an illegal act in California or vice versa?
Yes. If it's a when you're talking about planning dope and things like that.
Tell me about planning dope.
Yeah, those things are not written down on paper. If they are, they're on code. Those are sent by coded telex.
Now, where would they get the dope to plant?
I don't know. One of the higher Guardian's office operatives, who I'm sure has been here to Clearwater, I don't know if you're familiar with the name. His name is Bruce Raymond. One of the, he works for the Hubbards personally and handles the most secret, sensitive matters, so I'm sure he would have been sent to Clearwater one time or another. He specifically asked me to get some dope to put on, well, I'll be very specific. It's going to astound some people who are in Scientology right now. But their name is Bruce and Danielle Harrell. They own a mission here, I believe, in Florida somewhere. I think they're still in. At that time, the GO was very suspicious of them. And they wanted to plant dope on them and have the police raid the place because they thought they were squirreling, meaning they were doing tech not written by L. Ron Hubbard. Anyway, let me complete that.
Yes,
he asked me for the dope, and even though I started in a pool room and I worked in a casino, I'm 44, and at my age, we didn't fool with drugs the way they do today, and I told him I wouldn't know where to get it. But I have reason to believe from the gossip I heard in the Guardian's office that they dropped doing that. They did something else.
Do you have reason to believe that they grow or raise their own, or they buy it on the open market? where they're dealing in it?
Well, to be frank with you, the majority of young men coming in, including the daughters and citizens of people here in Clearwater, drugs is a very prevalent thing among young people today. Once a person has a drug history, now remember that history is going to be in his files, isn't it? His confessional files. The confessional files goes to the ethic's office, the ethics goes to the guardian's office. The guardian's office can easily pull one of them in and do the same thing they did with me, in order to help Scientology. Do you think you could get any of these drugs, So, in today's market, it's not a hard thing to get drugs.
I thought one of the beliefs, I should get out of beliefs, but one of the ways of life to be a good person would be not to take dope or alcohol or put any foreign substance in your system or into your body. Is that?
That is, and when you get auditing, that is one of the technical things that must occur, that you must give up all drugs or alcohol or stuff of that. In fact, I would say that it's one of the good things about Scientology. I've seen many people come in who were drug addicts, who gave up drugs just to get some counseling or auditing from me or from Scientology.
The guardians, is the guardian office explained to each recruit the duties of the guardian office, that indeed they do exist, and why they exist?
Their duties?
Yes.
Oh, yes. There's two forms. There is the...
But does the recruit, the new person, the new convert, is he told as to the duties of the guardian office?
He is told, that's not what they do, but he is told a certain statement about them. If you ask any Scientologist, what does the GO do? He'd say, these are the people that are here to help handle the interbulation of the area, to make it safe in order to practice Scientology.
Okay, we may have asked this before, but I'd like to, for the record, are recruits told that the personal information is available in the guardian's office?
Oh, no. They are, when they get auditing, they are specifically led to believe that it is totally personal and that no one will see their folders except the auditor and the CS, the person who is supervising the auditing. And people discuss the most intimate. I mean, if they knew it, they wouldn't continue.
I would assume that everyone would have a skeleton in the closet, no matter who they are.
Yeah, I mean, people have their personal qualms, and plus CSs are, Scientology is very into looking for sex or stuff. And, sometimes young men go into personal things that they would not like.
Well, I'm sure that nobody would want their personal life broadcasted
Absolutely.
to anyone else, be it their parents or the public or the press. One more question, and I'll go to my right again. Do you feel you're in danger right now, and what do you think the reaction will be to your testimony here today? What will I read in the paper tomorrow from how they're going to explain your testimony and reasons for being here?
All right, they will have to. They will have to contain the people at Fort Harrison to make sure that they don't hear this. That's their major problem. Otherwise, that would stop the money flow. They have to worry about the newspapers. So Ron says you never defend, you attack. They will give the newspapers serious allegations about me designed to technically be believed by a Scientologist.
Or to discredit you?
Yes. Yeah. And anything involving conspiracies, suppressiveness, those things would be believed by a Scientologist. Their major problem is that the money flow here at Fort Harrison does not dry up.
And you are testifying under oath, and you are with a threat of perjury. You understand that?
Yes.
And you understand that we may take this information and use it ourselves or give it to another governmental agency.
That's fine with me.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Garvey, I started with you, but it's still the same witness, so rather than have confusion later, I'll let you again lead off, because it again is the same witness. We'll go down the line and then get the testimony, the documents that Mr. Flynn would like to show on the screen. Mrs. Garvey.
Okay, thank you. Sir, one of the things the consultant has reported to us is health conditions in the Fort Harrison, and I would like to know what happened in Las Vegas. They're saying that there's concealment of epidemics and also the treatment of actual diseases by unlicensed individuals holding themselves out as medical practitioners. Did you witness any of this kind of attitude, action in your area?
Yes, in Las Vegas, yes.
But there were people... Excuse me, go ahead.
The conditions, the staff usually lives in a house, a staff house, that might be designed for a family, which would be a father, a mother, and 3 children. There usually might be 30 to 40 living there. In usual squalor, and children, because the mother is working 14 to 15 hours a day, the child are left alone. They will tell you that they have nannies for them and all that. Even if they do, the nanny's some confused kid who's probably in ethics anyway, which is why she's told to watch the kids. I have personal knowledge in Las Vegas of kids going days without eating. My wife and I even donated food once in a while because, God, you have to see it to believe it. Young kids looking at a jar of peanut butter like it was gold.
So you're saying that there is a practice of child abuse, whether it's emotional or physical?
Yes, it's a side product of it. It's not that they mean it to occur, it's a side product.
Is it a policy of the church to not refer people to doctors?
Yes, I mean, in fact, it is suppressive to deal with doctors. Doctors are butchers.
That if a Scientologist went to a doctor, then he would be he would be classified as dangerous.
Well, it all depends. If it's a legal cycle, the GO steps on a legal cycle. The GO will say things like, now listen, Mr. Jones, you can go to a doctor if you like. We are not saying you can't. But you know what Ron says about these butchers? Well, that's all you have to say. The guy doesn't go on his own free will.
Because Mr. Hubbard considers them enemies.
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't know if you have documents here. Dianetics course is full of Hubbard's theories and opinions about the doctors.
So they may not encourage them not to go, but they will discourage them from going.
Right.
As much as possible.
And they have very cleverly written policy saying that we support doctors. And if you have any illness, you should see your doctor. That's put in green volumes to show the public. But none of that is practiced.
One other thing, you said you worked as a registrar for a while. As your job, did you ever portray this organization as a charitable organization? Is that something that's commonly mentioned to people when they're interested in it? That Church of Scientology is a charitable organization?
Well, let me get it straight. I did not work as a staff member as a registrar because I was in the technical division.
Okay.
But I was always called in to handle a guy that wouldn't come up with the money. Because I was more expertise, you see. They could say, let me bring the surgeon in. Here's the surgeon that's going to work on you. Now, surgeon, can you handle him? He says he's got this trouble. Of course we can. Ron can handle anything. You know, that's when I would be brought in.
But was it ever put across that the money that was going to the church was for charitable purposes?
No. It depends again what legal cycle Scientology was going through. In the early days, you just paid your money. Then the government, I believe, raised some trouble about what's a non-profit status doing, charging people for all this. That you ought to be able to go in and just give them what you got. So they changed it called donation. But no Scientologist knows this. He doesn't even know why it's called donation. He thinks, well, I guess it's a religion, it's a donation. But I'm going to tell you, he won't get a service for $1 less than...
That's what I was going to say. If he didn't want to donate, he would not get a course.
Absolutely. If you pay $5,000 for that course, and you won't get it for $4.99, I'll tell you.
Thank you. That's all for me.
All right, Mr. Hatchett, do you have any questions?
Mr. Walters, would you characterize such action as a fraud
Yes.
to an individual?
Yes.
All right. Electronic bugging, covert. Were you ever involved in electronic bugging of someone's property, their home, or their automobile? Do you know about this specifically as an
I
operation?
know two very specifically, and others I know the results.
Can you describe some of this as a physical bugging?
Well,
Component parts.
I'll tell you one exactly. One is we bugged Dr. O'Gorman, psychiatrist in Las Vegas, without his knowledge. The other one was at Rose de Lima Hospital. Those are two that I participated in, but there's many others that I would just hear.
What type of physical equipment was used?
Oh,
Telephone,
at Rose de Lima, it was a new little tape recorder that just came out, Panasonic or something like that, and it was the first time that the little speaker was like part of the set. You know, it wasn't like, you know, that was like really big in the Geo. And they taped that underneath the table. The way it was done with Dr. O'Gorman was done with a tape recorder inside a briefcase, with a cord going from the briefcase up with my arm to here. And I sat and talked to him and recorded everything.
On the matter of extortion of money from people, can you give us an idea how this is really done, whether there was publication, communication, or just verbal communication to a person to extort? Any threats involved?
Again, it depends on the level of awareness of the individual. If you are, say, a Clearwater here and you are a sick person, and you've come down here to cure your ills, and now you've spent $80,000, which is all you have, and you are now starting to wonder about this, or you read a Reader's Digest article or something like that, you will be told that you'll be sent to ethics for doubting. See, just to doubt is an ethics offense. In fact, that's the name of it. See? Liability, treason, doubt. And that's technically, they want that word there. Just to say, you know, yeah, but I give you $80,000 and I'm not getting any better. Tell me, do you have any doubts about L. Ron Hubbard? Well, I'm just wondering. He gets put in doubt. And the reason he's put there is to keep them away from the others, because you can't have these guys sitting around in the lobby of Fort Harrison saying, are you getting any better? No. Are you getting any better? So one Scientologist who sees this writes it up. And he's sent to ethics. And in ethics, he is pressured depending on where he's at. They will send for his PC file, meaning his very personal auditing file. And the ethics officer will pull out of there whatever he thinks. Let's say the fella is down here to get his illness handled, but he confessed about helping his business go bankrupt sometime, you know. They will sort of insinuate to him, well, if you do these type of things, I mean, society is not going to like this, and Scientologists, we will be glad to expose you, and they'll give you something to read. I don't know if you have any of them here, but they give Keeping Scientology Working. Do you have that here?
Yeah.
Can I see one? I'll show you something. Keeping Scientology Working is what every Scientologist is brainwashed to do. Keeping Scientology Working is on every course that I ever did. It has lines on there like, we are a deadly serious game. We are here to win, not to lose. We'd rather have you dead than incompetent. I mean, please get the bulletin, because what I'm saying is, I must sound awful. But it's on, you can go down to Fort Harrison right now. They don't change it by the time they hear this. It's on the front of every course by order of Hubbard. So when you're reminded of these things in ethics, I'll tell you, you come up with whatever money's needed. Do your friends have any money? Do your relatives have any money? And you are shown how and helped to go back and sell your land or raise the money.
Thank you.
And that to me is extortion and through harassment.
Thank you.
Shoemaker, do you have any questions?
Now, Mr. Walters, you had, in your initial presentation, you had mentioned a comment which I wrote down about that you were concerned or that you certainly didn't want to end up being beaten or thrown down into a hole.
Yeah.
or words such as that. Do you have specific knowledge of beatings occurring, or
Well, it didn't.
some type of physical restraints other than being locked in a room, which you've already referred to?
Yeah, it did not happen to me, but I've heard from others who were on the ship. Hubbard was on a ship for a long time.
Right.
Who were put in the hole and were beaten and were locked in.
Physically put into some type
Oh
of
yes, into a
holodeck.
tiny little hole. I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but I think you're going to hear from somebody that had that exactly happen to them. They'll be in front of you in a few days.
You had also mentioned, too, that you had actually, in your training, gone through the auditing training course, which you termed as Class 8, I think you said, which was, it was almost converting or changing somebody from being a human being to being like a Gestapo person or something.
Right.
Could you expound on that a little bit in terms of what you learned in this?
That's a good question. Really good question, because you become an expert on the tech at Class 6. Remember, I spent a year and a half listening to five tapes a day, an hour and a half, 90-minute tapes a day. You study from 8:30 to 11 at night, every day for a year and a half. So you know the tech. Mm-hmm. But Ron, because of his paranoia and troubles that he would have, usually go into a city, go into a nation, criticize, defraud, government inspects, and he runs away. He went pretty berserk and hard-nosed around 67 and 68. Class 8 course come out in 68. Where the Class 8 now, we were supposed to be at the top and keep everybody in line. What I thought was going to be more technology on bringing peace and sanity to the world was technology on how to apply those ethics conditions. And Hubbard would tell you, anybody that ever went to a policeman is because you didn't catch them in ethics. And I'm tired of these failures, and you people letting me down. And the tech works, remember that. My tech never fails. And you must ferret out the suppressors. And the Class 8 was to go back to his city and be relentless in ferreting out suppressives, people with counterintention, meaning they thought differently than Scientologists. And we were to make them Scientologists or handle them.
Were you, with all of this money that was flowing in that you were paying for courses and so forth, and for the Scientology?
Let me mention one more thing, because it's very important. The Class 8 also is the one that handles the OT3s and above. OT3 level is the high super secret level where you find the secret of the universe. Guys are hooked on this and cost them 50, 60, 80. They'll take all you have. In fact, many people don't leave because no matter what happens to them, they're told that when you reach OT3, you will find out why the insanity in the world is. And the Class 8s are the ones who administer this. And it is total science fiction.
With all of the money that people are paying in for these various types of courses, where are they told that money goes?
Usually a lot of them don't ask. You're too busy keeping Scientology working. If you do ask, the Guardian's Office has this thing written by Ron called Where Your Fees Go. And it's beautifully written. When you get through written with that, you almost want to give him more. It tells about how he has researched this all this time, and he's holding the organization together, and people like yourselves are attacking him and causing legal problems, and you just don't realize all the amount of money to take the whole Scientology together and keep it working. And that Ron loves you and cares for you, and you know,
Mayor, if I've just got one other question. I had asked you, Mr. Walters, earlier if you were familiar with that ethics book, I believe it is.
Yes.
It has the high crimes. Can you briefly refer to what those high crimes say or what they are, please? 49, I believe. 49.
All right, that's when the ethics period came out. That was around 67. Ron had trouble in England. Things like this occurred. England started looking into him. So he ran off on a ship, which is interesting, familiar, the same as James Jones did. He ran off to Guyana. Hubbard went on a ship with his select crew by himself. But he puts out this for the Scientologists to straighten out everybody. Hubbard always feels when things go wrong, he got betrayed. So if you do things wrong or you fail, You can be charged with these high crimes. For example, attacks on Scientology and Scientologists. Do you realize that it is a suppressive? It's considered an attack for me to come here and talk to you. If any other Scientologist in the city does it, it would be considered suppressive, unless he's with the Guardian's office. But if a Scientologist of his own free will could not do this. Look at number 2. I haven't seen this in years. It's testifying hostilely before state or public inquiries into Scientology to suppress it. That's listed as a high crime. So when you study these things, I'm telling you, you just don't go visit people like you. I could go over them, reporting or threatening to report Scientology or Scientologists to civil authorities. So you realize when that little old lady loses her 80,000 and still has arthritis, she's caught between the ethics officer and she can't go to you because she'll be in a high crime. I mean, I sit here, laughing about it, but it's very serious when you talk about the people who come here to Clearwater and got fleeced and are in serious dilemmas. It's not really funny, but this is told to every Scientologist, and they are told to read and study it.
If I might ask you just one other question, Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, look at number 7. Boy, I'm really a high crime. Testifying as a hostile witness against Scientology in public.
And all of these, if you violated these, in essence, then you are a suppressive person, and therefore the fair game policy could be implemented against you.
Absolutely.
Or anything else.
Right.
The other question, and I I think you alluded to it basically there, but I know it's a question that's always been in the back of my mind. I think it is on others. You're certainly not a dumb man. You have a lot of intelligence. You've been out on the street and grew up and knew pretty much what was going on. Why 9 years before you came to the realization? How could you have accepted so much of this for such a period of time before you came to the realization to get out?
Very good question. When I left, I asked myself that and actually studied it. My hook, with everybody has a carrot. If you've got cancer, of course it's cancer.
Right.
If you can't get along with your mother, thing. If you got a sexual problem, it's that. Mine was, I was thought, as many of us did, that L. Ron Hubbard was a genius engineer, physicist, who had found legitimate, workable laws and axioms that would help benefit mankind. And I thought somewhere I'd find it. Even after Class 6, when I studied everything, I was told, yeah, but Eddie, wait till you get to Class 8.
So it's always
more. And when I got to Class 8, it was the way I told you. And the turning point for me was when they started lying to the Scientologists about that they did not break into the Justice Department, they did not think. Then I thought, Jesus, all the stuff we've been doing, now we're even going to lie about that? I want it out. But everybody has their own carrot. Some are just disillusioned young people who are stuck on Hubbard. Others are sick people trying to cure their illness. Some are people like myself looking for to study the works of a brilliant person in order to benefit myself and others.
Mayor, I don't have the answer.
Well, you turn want me to ask a question. What kind of things do you study in Class 8?
All right, Class 8.
Specifically, what do you study?
Specifically, you first you go over all the basic tech again. Tech of communication, tech of auditing, tech on cycles of life, a lot of the stuff. You then learn how to study folders and to find out why things did not work. But the reason you're given is that it always was a suppressive or a PTS person. It's like, in other words, you don't find the mistake or where we did something wrong. You are to find who the enemy was and why they did it. Like, if any of you gentlemen or any person got counseling, auditing, and it didn't work, they would want to find what suppressive you're connected with. Because, see, it cannot be anything at Fort Harrison. They're perfect. It's got to be you. My job was to learn to apply ethics. We studied ethics heavily, and we were to put the person in ethics and find out why they did not want to get better or what suppressive group they were involved in. Then you studied OT3. This is one of the major secret levels that they're all told. And you're told because After OT3 came out in 1967, Scientology had a lot of serious internal problems because people after this level, they had spent thousands and waited years to get it, were acting as nutty as ever. So one of Class 8's things to do was we were taught how to repair these people. Like, you know, it involves spaceships and mountains blowing up, and your body is made up of body thetans. And this is very serious because that individual, when he completes OT3, he thinks all of you people have body thetans that are really talking to you, real spirits. Your body is made up of spirits, and they're talking to you, not you. So that's the reason your mother did not want to support you in Scientology. It wasn't her, it was her body thetan. So this makes you join staff, or...
We don't want to get too far. That may be construed as a belief. But I'm going to ask you anyway. Were you ever? I've heard a lot of stories of what's going on. Were you ever able to leave your body and go to Paris in a spiritual sense?
No. No. And that's what most everybody is down here at Clearwater in order to do. That's the end thing of OT4. It's the next step of OT3.
Is to go to Paris or wherever in the
or wherever you want to go. You leave your body at will.
You've never known anyone who could do that?
No. Now, I've known people that said they'd do it. I mean, you know, they could line up 50 Scientologists that will tell you, they'll sit here and tell you they're in Paris. But listen, I'll tell you what you can do. Just write a number on a piece of paper and say, well, go under that pad and tell me what the thing is. And you'll...
One other accusation I've heard that I don't know if it's true, and I'm going to add, maybe you have a knowledge, that my office faces their office, that they can eavesdrop with some sort of a beam of sorts, microwave possibly, and hear what I say, and I don't even know it because I can't see it.
Yes, that's discussed on the upper levels. You see, the Guardian's office and the upper tech people tell the newer people that they can leave their bodies, see? So we're not worried about mayor or chair. I mean, listen, that idiot is over there, and we are on top of him all the time. We're spiritual beings. And we can sit in Fort Harrison and totally overhear every conversation.
But that's a spiritual sense. In the state-of-the-art sense, the newest state-of-the-art, is there a wave of sort of light or microwave or whatever that they can hear my conversations in my office with, say, the attorney, without my office being bugged physically on the phone or something?
Electronically?
Yes, electronically. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'd like to then ask Mr. Buston if you have any questions, or Mr. Caldebank to continue.
Ed, well, Mayor, first of all, I will recount one actual thing regarding bugging or some type of devices, whether it's coming from Fort Harrison or not. When Calvary Baptist Church put in their new audio system in the church, one of the engineers in my office did go out and take a reading for EMF, electromagnetic fields, and there was such an exceptionally high, they call it a hot spot of these type of energy waves in this area that they had to take special precautions or technically work it. So I don't know where that came from, but it can happen.
Okay.
I'd like to get on to the fraud aspect, where I think perhaps you gave money, your consideration, based on representations or guarantees, and based on that you gave $35,000 to $40,000 to an organization. And auditing, you were told, was a scientific, a worldly, something on earth that was researched.
Right.
You were told auditing was scientific in nature.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were told that this had been researched by whoever.
L. Ron Hubbard.
And why did you believe that auditing would help?
Because in the early courses, you're given some of his scientific discoveries that appeal to you. The very first thing you do is the communication course, where you sit across from each other in chairs and you do those training drills. But then they will have you demonstrate a formula, cause, distance, effect. I create a cause across the distance to an effect. And if you are physics-minded or interested in the way the world operates, that looks very interesting to you. That's right. When I speak, you hear it. There's a cause, there's an effect here. And then you originate a communication, send it across a space to me, and I hear it. You actually demo this out with play demo.
And you spent money because you were told that a world-renowned researcher did this.
Yes, yeah.
And then you taught other people.
Yes.
Now, did you also represent to them, when they asked you, why should I spend this money or does it work, did you represent to them the same things that were represented to you, that this was research for 30 or more years by a nuclear physicist, et cetera, et cetera? In other words, did you continue this?
Yes, you're taught how to do it.
And how did you do it? How did you make these representations? Were they published? Were they in writing? Orally? Verbally? How did you show the person that it was...
All right, some of the technology data is on the course that you're taking. You're given lectures. They're in all the books, who Hubbard is and his credentials. We as higher Scientologists gladly tell about the wisdom and the great expertise of L. Ron Hubbard. And when a person says, that's amazing, cause, distance, effect, that's really scientific. Of course, the man's a nuclear physicist. He's one of the great educators on the planet. And this is just a sampling of the great technology you can receive.
So one of the things that bring people in, one of the major factors is this man, throughout his life, had a high history of engineering, academic, physical experiences, and that he actually cured himself and other people and had case histories.
Right.
And were you ever guaranteed, you said that, I don't want to get into the religion, you said that you could do this and do that, which is fine. But were you ever guaranteed for your money that you would get well? Were you ever sat down and said, Ed, for this money, once you get to OT3, we guarantee that you'll understand the universe?
Yes.
Or were you ever guaranteed, religion aside, was there an actual guarantee? You gave money for a guarantee that your stomach, your back would be better, you would be able to exteriorize, etc. Were these actual guarantees that you based giving your money on?
You have a great chart here. All right, when you take Dianetics, they'll show you. This is Dianetics. This is what you will get, Eddie. You will get scientific auditing from an auditor. This is what you receive. What you get is you become a well and happy human being. They'll guarantee that.
Did you, in auditing, were you guaranteed also that this was confidential?
Oh,
what
yes.
you put down?
Yes.
You said before that the government guaranteed it?
Well, they tell you that it's pastoral counseling between a minister and you.
A fiduciary relationship.
Yeah, and that the government protects religion, so they will protect us.
But did you ever see this or take part in using these, what were told to you, confidential files to harm someone?
Were they ever used to harm
people? Right.
Yes, on a regular basis.
In other words, they were used to say, if you go to the police or if you take your legal means or redress, we will expose what we told you were confidential files?
Right.
Can you give me an example, a date, when, where, and who?
All right. I'll give you the very latest. That'll be a good example to show you that this hasn't stopped. They tell you they're cleaning up their act. The fellow that I told you that came to me, his name is Hartwell, that came to me about where Hubbard was hiding in the desert, and I brought that to the guardian's office, I left. They then told the newspapers and other Scientologists that he was a murderer, that he murdered his father, and called him an extortionist. And that came out of his folders because no one knew anything about. And first thing, he didn't murder his father. I think he'd allow me to say that. What he did is he ran a Dianetic incident in a past life. This may sound unreal to you. In a past life, a life before this one, He believed he might have killed his father in a life before this one.
And so they threatened to expose this.
Yeah, they brought it to the newspapers.
And what did that prevent him from doing?
That was, well, in this day it didn't work, but the idea was to back him off, to show the newspapers that they could end up in legal trouble themselves because they're dealing with a murderer. And his, if you need to, you can fly down his auditor who audited him to tell you that he's the only, because I never knew it. The only one who knew it was a person called Claire Briner, who was his personal auditor. And it's interesting, that's why Claire Briner left Scientology.
Is this a common practice by policy?
Very common.
Okay, now, what's the difference then between a security check and what is the purpose of a security check being on the same instrument that's used for auditing? What is the purpose of that? Why do they do it? And before you get into that, have you ever seen a disclaimer? You realize by article or device, you're supposed to disclaim any, you were guaranteed that it would cure your stomach and back. Did you ever at any time, were you told that by the court, they were directed to put a disclaimer that it had no, to paraphrase it, no medical validity? Did they ever tell you that auditing, Dianetics, etc. would not do that?
No, they never told us any of that. What I heard, because remember I was with GO, I had heard that there had been some legal thing occurred and that they got caught acting like they could cure things and there was trouble over the e-meter. They made up some stickers that say something exactly like that, that this e-meter cannot diagnose any illness and blah, 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 blah. But they're not used anywhere.
Did you ever tell your students that?
No.
What did you tell your students?
If you told your student that, he wouldn't give you the money.
Okay, and then in addition to the e-meter, etc., I asked about security check. What is its purpose? How is a security check run?
Right, that's a very good question because you see in the early auditing, you are giving off your personal things and your family problems, etc. So you develop a very confidential presence with your auditor. Mm-hmm. You will find out later when you get into ethics that they will use the same machine and sit you down and do a sec check. A sec check is a list of questions designed to ferret out that you're possibly an enemy. But you are told it's to make you better. It's told that, yes, we realize you're ill and we realize you're thinking of going to a lawyer or something like that. We need to do a sec check on you, and because you realize that if you give up your overts and transgressions, that you will be a better person. That's the only way to go clear. So the guy says, fine. And when he sits down to do the sec check, it turns out to be, have you ever talked to the FBI about L. Ron Hubbard? Have you ever talked to any legal authority about Mary Sue Hubbard? It's totally to protect the organization. You know, but they have sec checks for sexual things, children. Part of the policy is that if you're sick, you are PTS, which means you're a potential trouble source. Hubbard has been burned too many times by people getting upset and going to the authorities. So that guy is not allowed out of the org. He is to be sec checked until he comes up with his crimes.
So basically, to capsulize that, you're telling me that auditing and sec checks, these personal things that are told to you and guaranteed their confidentiality, are then used to prevent you from legal redress or from going to the authorities. Basically what's known in law as extortion.
Right.
And you've given examples to that. My last question deals with the criminal aspect again. You mentioned points, a point system where people earn points. And we're looking at policies that, as the Great Britain and Australia report stated, that one reason that they banned that type of thing in those countries is because they found that policies induce people to commit criminal acts. Correct?
Right.
Now, explain the point system and the fair game policy. You said that a person could gain points, and is that favorable in Scientology? Do they keep a record of it? And are these points given for criminal activities or to complete the fair game policy, attack the attacker, break-ins, or extortion?
Yes. In the paranoid attempt to defeat the enemy, if you cause trouble and you are convinced that you are done bad, you degrade yourself, you must now strike a blow to the enemy. This is to get out of ethics. You have that? Okay. You must strike a blow back. The guardian's office will help you, such as, well, if a guy was in ethics in here at Fort Harrison, his job would be to sit down and write 13 letters to the commissioners on how great Scientology is. If he's inclined toward doing anything to get better, he might be assigned to follow you. And this would go in his ethics record as showing good Scientologist, good intention to safeguard Scientology.
Okay, please give me a specific example of a criminal activity that Scientology did in performing the policy, and how the points in the policy got him to commit the policy and the point system to gain favor again, got him to either burglarize or stop, restrain, anything to go against an SP or suppress a person.
For example, in Las Vegas, if a city commissioner or a legislator...
can you give when and where and who, if you could?
Let me give it. I would tell the Review-Journal that. Review-Journal is a newspaper in Las Vegas. They had a plant in there who told them that a reporter was setting up to write a story on Scientology. And people had come to him. This was in 1973, I think. It was 72. Chuck Reese was given the assignment, and his job was to stop that so-called flap. He asked me to, if I would go over there and case the place and steal documents from the file. I wouldn't do it. I asked my wife if she would go over there to the, because the reporter used to hang out in the Legal Research Bureau or something like that, and she wouldn't do it. But eventually he did it because he has an operations, right? And he has to comply.
Mm-hmm.
He has to comply with it in the time period he's given. If he's not, he's put in ethics.
So based on the op sheet, which goes up and down from various division to division, the routing that the mayor brought up, this was given to him to fulfill Scientology policy. You cased it knowing that the documents would be illegally removed.
Right. And if he doesn't do this in the prescribed time, then he is not produced for that week. His stats are down. And he could be put in one of those conditions.
And he received points for this.
Oh, yes. There is in Volume 1, you have it, in Volume 1, there is an exact policy on how to figure a stat. A chart, like say a stat going up like this, would be normal. Because you're supposed to always do more burgling, more thing. A stat like this is better. So the stat like level would be emergency. A stat like this would be in liability or treason.
You're saying that the stats that were transmitted to L. Ron Hubbard over telexes, they contained points for actual criminal activities. So not only did they have the policies throughout the structure of Scientology, you said that this is throughout it, in Clearwater also, but you also got points. So it encouraged you to commit any act against a suppressive person on 2 accounts, to be in policy and also to get points. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
And he had stats delivered to him weekly or monthly across telex showing this?
Absolutely. In fact, he has a room, and I have not been on it, the flag, I'm sure you have it here, where the stats from all orgs around the United States are kept.
Give me another example of who, what, when, and where of say, another criminal activity that put the Scientologist in good stead on both policy and points, if you can.
Let me think of one.
Okay, well.
Some of the early operations.
Or if you heard of
well, for example, well, here's a daily example. I mean, we can go, it's not all burglary and stuff. Your registrar I told you about, right? His job is to get the money from the individual, right? he is given hot prospects list. So that's his staff. He's got to complete 6 of them, or 5 of them, whatever it is. In order to do that, that person will resort to whatever it is to get the money, because that registrar cannot, if she only takes in $10,000 for the week, and her goal for the week was $22,000, she is in now one of those lower conditions. And these kids will go to will do anything, lie. They will even go to the bank with the person to try to get the person to give up their money. I mean, you'll hear this from other people. I mean, I know it may sound like I'm making this all up, because the severity of these lower conditions and the harassment internally in Scientology is so bad that good people are directed toward doing not nice things and harassment and defrauding and lying about Scientology in an effort to do a good job so they can go clear.
Okay, and you're prepared for another agency to ask you more specifically, or you would be prepared with specific examples?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Herfield, do you have any questions of the witness?
Yes, Mr. Walters, you keep making reference to Mr. Hubbard. Have you ever personally met him?
No.
You also talk about the flag, make a reference to Clearwater. Is Clearwater the flag or one of the flags?
No, it's the flag.
It is the worldwide headquarters or U.S. headquarters? Or
right. That's the worldwide.
The worldwide
headquarters. The flag is the highest point on the organization board.
We've seen some documents over here. Having not met Mr. Hubbard, how would you know that those documents were even produced by him or sanctioned by him?
Well, it's a good question. Can I say I saw him write them? No. I've talked to people that seen him write them. I've studied with people that were on the ship with him. I can tell you that it is a high crime to do something not written by him. I mean, the discipline is severe. If L. Ron Hubbard didn't write it, it isn't true. So, and the higher up you go, the more severe the discipline. It's easy to say, because in fact, what you were thinking of, I don't know if you're thinking of that, but I used to think of that, listen, maybe the guys in Las Vegas are nuts, and maybe they're only nuts in Los Angeles too. Maybe in Clearwater it's a lot better, because that's where Ron is. Then this guy comes to me telling me about Ron in the desert. And you'll probably meet him. All I can tell you, I traced it all the way to the top. And it was just as severe at the top, in fact, more criminal at the top than it is at the bottom.
Well, that's what I'm trying to establish in my own mind here, is these procedures, where they came from. Did anybody, in fact, know that they came from the top, or did some clown like Jim Burfield sit up there and dream them up? Because if we're talking about all the procedures that you've mentioned here, that must be all Mr. Hubbard does, is sit around and write procedures.
That's about, if you have any volumes here, there's a volume right there. You hold that up. That's Division 1. There are 7 of those. And that's only up to 1976 or something. He does nothing but write this stuff. Anyway.
Earlier today and one little while ago, and that was the dividing of the family, or the use of Scientology to divide the family. Can you personally, from first-hand information, state that you've seen that used?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry to say I participated in some, technically. It's a standard practice. If your son was in, sir, and you did not like Scientology, you would be declared suppressive and thoroughly investigated, and your son, if he wants to continue, must disconnect from you or strike a blow toward the enemy.
The other one that follows along somewhat in the same vein was you used a hypothetical of the little old lady that had invested X number of thousands of dollars, could not turn to any governmental body or could not turn to Scientology. What we're saying, in essence, is that that person is just sitting there in limbo. Is that correct?
Very good. That's exactly. There are thousands of them across the United States. And I believe when this hearing goes public and this thing, and it becomes okay to speak up, you're going to have massive lawsuits, probably against the city of Clearwater and Fort Harrison. There are thousands of Scientologists scared to speak up. I just got so hot. I'm a pretty tough cookie. But there are people not in very good shape who have lost everything they have. I call it a holding pattern.
I don't mean to sound like the devil's adversary on this, but I cannot get it out of my mind. I've heard you say why you were here. I do not have the time to watch television, but what you've described here sounds like one of these horror stories that we have on television. But it sounds like something you read out of, that came out of the Second World War. Do you do a lot of reading that would prompt some of this in your own imagination?
No. To be totally frank with you, you haven't heard all of it. In 4 days, ask me that question again.
Fair question.
Because what I'm telling you, I could be totally lying. You might have the individuals I'm talking about in front of you. I mean, it's just, you see,
you have, and you've been asked this a couple times, recognize you've been under oath. Have you ever been under oath before in life?
under oath and lied? No. Never.
So you've never perjured yourself before? All these other
Scientology?
things?
No.
No. In any civil, legislative, or any type of court or swearing-in ceremony that you perjured yourself?
No. Absolutely not.
Come down to the loaded question. Recognizing where you have been, and we're sitting here thinking about this little old lady and the problems that she has, what would cause you, if the tables were turned, if you were me, to believe what you say to be the truth?
I'd say sit right where you are, and in 4 days you'll be, or in Scientology I guess we'll get a chance. If you can't make a decision after that, then don't do anything.
Thank you. Did you ever lie under oath with a Scientologist?
For Scientology?
Yes.
No.
Okay. We have been grilling you for the good part of the day, and we appreciate you coming. I know it's been difficult for you, mentally, physically, I'm sure financially.
And we wish you well.
The court of public opinion, I think, will win out. You guys are just in the soup as much as I am, as you'll see. You're going to have a hell of a battle on your hands.
Mayor, at this point, I will introduce the document, and we'll keep the witness here, and in the event that any of you have any questions about the documents that are put on the overhead projector, and Mr. Walters, if he is able, whatever questions you can ask him.
Certainly. This will take, what, 45 minutes to an hour, possibly?
I would estimate it's difficult to, I would estimate about an hour.
All right.
The first exhibit, which is on the easel also,
Do you want the lights out?
Yeah.
All right,
However the system works, I'm not familiar with it. That'll be exhibit one.
Mike, we're the overhead, the transparency.
The pure game book. Right. So we're going to go to, I just marked for the record, exhibit one, a copy of it, which is called the Fair Game Doctrine, which in a large version appears on the board over there, to which the witnesses referred several times in testimony. Exhibit 2 is the more extensive or complete version of the Fair Game Doctrine, of some 4 or 5 pages.
Excuse me, Mr. Flynn, take the mic so we can hear you in the back and also for the tape.
I don't know which one this is.
Exhibit 2 is the complete Fair Game Doctrine as it appears in the green volume. It's published by the Church of Scientology of California. All of these documents are copyrighted by L. Ron Hubbard. That will be marked as Exhibit 2. Perhaps if we could have the lights off, or will that affect the cameras? Now, there are pertinent portions of Exhibit 2 which I would like to bring to the Commission's attention. And Mr. Green will read from his copy in front of him of the pertinent portions that appear on the exhibit on the projector.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Attorney Thomas Green, and I'm a co-counsel here with Mr. Flynn.
Thank you.
I'm reading from page 3 of the exhibit, Corporation's Policy. Page we see on the overhead projector indicates, quote, the homes, property, places, and abodes of persons who have been active in attempting to suppress Scientology or Scientologists are all beyond any protection of Scientology ethics unless absolved by later ethics or an amnesty. Page 1, which is not on the overhead projector of this same exhibit, which has been introduced into evidence, defines a suppressive person or group. Quote, a suppressive person or group is one that actively seeks to suppress or damage Scientology or a Scientologist by suppressive acts.
If any of the commissioners have any questions, you might make notes about this policy and where it appears in Scientology publications, the volume number, and Mr. Walters can answer specific questions on that fact.
Again, that was Exhibit 2 that I made reference to. Also on page 1 of that exhibit, quote, a suppressive person or group becomes fair game, close quote. Suppressive acts are defined on page 2 of the exhibit. The corporate policy defines the acts as follows, quote, proposing, advising, or voting for legislation or ordinances, rules or laws directed toward the suppression of Scientology. Second definition, quote, testifying hostilely before state or public inquiries into Scientology to suppress it, close quote. A third definition, testifying as a hostile witness against Scientology in public, close quote.
So if you were a good Scientologist, you would lie if you were brought before a legislative hearing or a criminal proceeding.
Yes, well, if you're a good Scientologist, you would not. It is a suppressive act to appear before you as a hostile witness. So to remain a good Scientologist, you would have to lie.
Thank you.
Again, making reference to the same exhibit and reading from page 4 of that exhibit, a reference to disconnection. Quote, disconnection from a family member.
Tom, perhaps you can use a pointer so that
I've got, yeah.
Again, quote, disconnection from a family member or cessation of adherence to a suppressive person or group is done by the potential trouble source publicly publishing the fact, as in the legal notices of the auditor, and public announcements, and taking any required civil action, such as disavowal, separation, or divorce, and thereafter cutting all further communication and disassociating from the person or group.
Moving on to the next exhibit, which we will have marked as Exhibit 3, is a document entitled Attacks on Scientology, part of which also appears on the easel. And if we could put page 1 on the projector.
Making reference to corporate policy, which has just been marked as Exhibit 3, entitled Attacks on Scientology. Quote, anyone proposing an investigation of or an inquiry into Scientology must receive this reply and no other proposal. We welcome an investigation into, parentheses, mental healing or wherever it is attacking us, close parentheses, as we have begun one ourselves and find shocking evidence. You can elaborate on the evidence we have found and lay it on thick, attacking the attackers only. Never agree to an investigation of Scientology. Only agree to an investigation of the attackers. A bit below that paragraph, the correct procedure is set forth. Quote, this is correct procedure. 1, spot who is attacking us. 2, start investigating them promptly for felonies or worse, using our own professionals, not outside agencies. 3, double curve our reply by saying we welcome an investigation of them. 4, start feeding lurid blood, sex, crime, actual evidence on the attackers to the press. Don't ever tamely submit to an investigation of us. Make it rough on attackers all the way. Last sentence in the next paragraph. Use their blood, sex, crime to get headlines. Don't use us. I speak from 15 years of experience in this. There has never yet been an attacker who was not reeking with crime. All we had to do was look for it, and murder would come out. The second page of that exhibit, we could have that on the projector.
Who wrote this? Who is the author of this?
This appears on page 2 at the bottom of the sheet. The founder, L. Ron Hubbard.
This is the writings of L. Ron Hubbard.
And copyrighted by Mr. L. Ron Hubbard.
Is this policy in that green book, or, you know?
Not one.
But, I mean, one of the volumes that is set forth as being the...
Yeah, this particular one has been changed and cleaned up, and you'll find that one in there. But there are plenty of copies of the original one here, which is the one the Guardian's office and all of us operate on.
But these policies, these corporate policies, are in these bound books.
Yes. Well,
somewhere.
The general Scientology policy is in those. Guardian's office policy you will find nowhere except in locked files at Fort Harrison or Los Angeles.
So what you're saying is the policies that the public can get a hold of may say one thing, but the policies that came out of the FBI raids, etc., the ones that they actually go by are this. So what we perceive and what actually goes on may be two different things?
Right.
Richards, I wish you would refrain from speaking now unless it affects the flow and the continuity of the evidence he's presenting. We can get back and ask him questions later, but if it's that important, just jump on it anyway.
Again, directing your attention to page 2 of Exhibit 3. Quote, how to stop attacks. The way we will eventually stop all attacks from there on out is by processing the society as follows. 1, locate a source of attack on us. 2, investigate it. 3, expose it with wide, lurid publicity. If you drop down midway on that page, page 2, quote, remember churches are looked upon as reform groups. Therefore, we must act like a reform group. At the bottom of, I believe at the bottom of this page, or perhaps it's page 3, the last page to this exhibit, if we could have that put on the overhead projector. You'll see that this policy was written by L. Ron Hubbard and copyrighted to him. Exhibit 4 is a document entitled Declare, involving subjecting a particular person whose name has been whited out to the fair game doctrine. And I would suggest that the commissioners might note specifically the date on this up in the upper right-hand corner, as Mr. Green will point out, and also that Mr. Walters should probably be specifically questioned about a document which alleged, at least for public purposes, to cancel the fair game doctrine, and the date, as Mr. Walters might recall it, of when that public document said it was canceled, as opposed to the date that appears on the upper right-hand corner. You might make a note of that. I would point out that the date, 8 June 1979, is when this particular individual was declared a suppressive person. And in the last sentence of the last paragraph, the statement appears that he is subjected to the fair game law 23 December 65, which has been marked as Exhibit 2. And Mr. Walters, at this point, I think might want to clarify what I previously stated to you about a purported public cancellation of the fair game doctrine.
Yeah, publicly a policy letter was put out saying that this did not occur. But as you can see, it does occur. By the way, this is here at Fort Harrison, because Flag in 79 was here. And this is telling every Scientologist that they can now treat this person as fair game.
How do you know that?
And it says it on it, Scientology and Scientologists, the fair game law. He has not permitted any auditing or training in any church of Scientology at all. Oh, the routing tells me.
Right.
It goes to fellows, all missions, and Guardian worldwide. Every organization in Scientology will get this, and wherever this guy goes, he will be handled.
Well, is he still a member?
Well, no, he's a member legally because he's still a suppressive person.
Because he signed a million-year contract?
No, because he's still stuck in Scientology.
Oh.
This is the handling they're doing on him. He'll either be handled or he'll admit to whatever they want to admit and become a good Scientologist.
He doesn't want to leave at this point.
No, this is why you can do these things to these fellows. A normal person like you'd go to your lawyer.
What was that, Exhibit 3?
That was Exhibit 4. Exhibit 5 is a document called Condition of Liability, and I would refer Mr. Shoemaker to probably about midway down the page where it begins, deliver an effective blow to the enemies of the group one has been pretending to be part of despite personal danger.
See that line 2?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, line 2 is what I was talking meant to Mr. Burfield, where I said his son, if he's put in liability, will either disconnect from you, sir, or he will strike a blow to you. And that's where it's written. It is policy. It's not just a cute idea. He must do that to you, or he cannot stay in Scientology.
I think I should ask you this now. Is that similar to the Eagleton affair?
That's exactly what it is.
With the
In my
niece
opinion.
who made up stories about Senator Eagleton?
Yeah, because we knew in the Geo files that he had
Psychiatric.
yeah, but more. He had
Electroshock.
electroshock.
Okay.
Exhibit 6 is a multi-page exhibit from Church of Scientology of California, Hubbard Communications Office, policies concerning security checks about which the witness testified about, and Mr. Green will read from portions of that exhibit. Mr. Flynn explained to the commissioners, when these documents are put on the overhead projector, you should examine the top of the document, which mentions, in this case, Hubbard Communication Office, St. Hill Manor, East Grinstead, Sussex.
What's the date?
And this is dated 3 February 1960. Security check. I read the second sentence. An e-meter is better known as a lie detector and is used to ascertain truth of background and conduct. The following points will be covered by the examiner. Any criminal background, any communist or subversive connection, spreading of slander concerning St. Hill or its people, discouraging new employees by malicious lies, receipts of commissions on purchases for St. Hill, overts against Dr. or Mrs. Hubbard. No staff at St. Hill are exempt. No suspicion is necessarily attached to any person at St. Hill. This is a security check. It is an effort to clear the air.
Even though the date was 60, Mr. Walters, is this still being done, security checks?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Walter, how can the commission determine which policies, certainly these that are older, whether they're still in effect or whether they've been changed in the process?
If that one was canceled, a policy coming out expressly canceling that would come out.
It would come out.
Yeah.
But as you indicated before, that might not be truly indicative that it has been canceled, such as the fair game policy?
Right, right. But I'm familiar with all these. These are well studied by, because I'm the person who would give these security checks.
And these policies are done with every Scientologist? Has access to it and is taught that at specific levels?
Not every Scientologist. If you get in trouble, you'll get this.
Okay.
By their definition of trouble.
That's right. Like being here today.
I'm going to read from page 6 of the security check several questions. So if I could have page 6 put on the overhead projector. This page 6 refers to the same exhibit number. 6. Exhibit 6, page 6. These are a number of questions that are asked on a security check. Midway down. Have you ever blackmailed anybody? Have you ever been blackmailed? Have you ever smuggled anything? Have you ever been in prison? Have you ever indulged in drunkenness? Have you ever done any reckless driving? Have you ever burgled any place? Have you ever embezzled money? Have you ever had anything to do with pornography? Have you ever committed arson? Have you ever been a drug addict? Have you ever peddled dope? Have you ever had any dealings with stolen goods? Do you have a police record? Have you ever been raped? Have you ever been involved in an abortion? Have you assisted in any abortion? Have you ever committed adultery? Have you ever practiced homosexuality? Have you ever had intercourse with a member of your family? Have you ever been sexually unfaithful? Have you ever practiced sodomy? Page 7 and 8 of the same exhibit follow with similar questions. Page 8 of the exhibit sets forth 3 questions. Do you have any overts on LRH? Have you ever had unkind thoughts about LRH? Again, for the commissioners, these references LRH are L. Ron Hubbard and...
Leave that up there for a minute, if I may. Is this part of the information that you were talking about that was in the confidential document that's taken on you?
Absolutely.
And the answers that you give to that are what they use to, if I can use the word blackmail or distort you?
Coercion.
Coercion or whatever.
Right.
Well, what happens if you don't answer all of those? You don't stick it in their ear, or...
Well, I don't know if you have them here. There's drills on how to handle people that don't answer. I mean, a guy is trained to get an answer. If that person doesn't answer, he'll end up in those ethics conditions, and he'll be sweeping the floor. And he will not be allowed to leave the building until he goes back there and answers these questions.
Is 70 passing, or is it on a curve, or what?
Well, you know, the funny thing about it is young people who may have had some indiscretions in their lives, you know, will actually come up with answers to these things. You know, like, have you ever taken money for giving anyone sexual intercourse? A woman might admit, and actually may receive some benefit from feeling good about saying that. You see? And when she does, they will expound on that and get more of it. But if she ever goes to leave or cause a flap, then this is given to the ethics officer or is given to the guardian's office. Somebody earlier asked, where do they get drugs and stuff? These security checks tells you who takes drugs, who don't, who burglarize. Recruitment is very easy.
But do you ever see your grade?
No, they come to us. I was a CS. It's a technical action. There's no grade on this.
No.
It's
They
a
just say passed and why.
All I cared as a CS is, did we get everything? Is the guy critical of Scientology? If he's critical, he goes back in the room. If he's not critical anymore, then we let him off.
But this document is a corporate document.
Absolutely.
And it's made out on everyone?
Everyone that needs it. If you're critical of Scientology, you'll get it.
They answer these questions while they're attached to an e-meter.
Yes.
Which supposedly they think is a lie detector.
Right.
Is it?
A lie detector? It is a rough form of a lie detector in the sense that it's biofeedback. It does react to what you do. But you are led to believe that it'll tell if you're lying or not.
Can you lie to pass this to get out of the room?
Well, technically, I would say yes, because if you were an honest person who stole $20, if I asked you about it, you would normally react to it, wouldn't you? You'd have a feeling of, uh-oh. If you were a total criminal, you could sit and go through this and not have any trouble. You got to remember, these kids are brainwashed into telling Ron everything, and if you don't, he'll get it all.
And this is part of the counseling sessions that they...
That's right. And he thinks that this will, nobody will ever see this. He's encouraged it. Who did you have sex with? And tell me about it. What did you do?
I asked that we refrain, but I think I'm going to have to rescind what I said, because if you want to ask something specifically to this in a half hour, we're going to have to take another 20 minutes to find it.
Right.
So go ahead and ask questions of the witness or the consultant, but try and be brief.
Can you give me a specific example? Was this ever used on you to where they told you to pay up to stay in, or they would expose confidential files?
Yes, on
Specific.
1978 at Celebrity Center, I was the CS, the top technical person. The Guardian's office came in and checked everybody on staff.
But did they use that information to make you do something?
Not me, no.
Did you ever participate in something like that? If so, when?
Sec checking and stuff?
Using it to stop someone from leaving or paying?
No, I didn't do it. I give it to the Guardian's office. They do it.
Do you know that for a fact?
Yes.
Well, for the record, there'll be many, many exhibits of such actual practice.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Walter.
Hatchet?
Mr. Walter.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe to me how the e-meter is actually placed in contact with the human body of the counselee?
The person holds two soup cans that the labels have been taking off, and they're silver, and they hold the two soup cans.
In their hand?
In their hands, and they're connected to wires to the e-meter.
What is this? Good, I'm sorry.
Is this battery?
It's battery operated, yes.
Okay. So a person's nervous system is the key for the counselor to make his interpretations from. Like
That's right.
flinch, or flash of blood, or
Right.
quick twitch of the muscles.
Right.
Okay.
It operates just like a lie detector.
Okay.
With all the money they have, why didn't they get a real lie detector rather than use two soup cans and a string?
Now, two reasons. One, the thing that they made probably cost them about $12 to make, and we all had to buy them at $250 a piece. Mm-hmm. The second reason, Hubbard is the sole source of everything. He believes everything you use in the police or everything is totally 10 years behind. He tells us everything he's got, it comes from the space planet, so it's always better.
Okay, Charlie?
It just seems more believable if you had a real one than the two soup cans.
I guess, in case anyone would say that this is part of their religious doctrine, the e-meter, you're also saying that this is used in auditing, which is scientifically, which is held out to you as a scientific thing that was researched. This is part of the things that you were guaranteed that you paid money for?
Right. There's no religious connotation to this at all.
And this is also used in some of the activities for extortion?
It's a total investigative technique.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Flynn?
The next exhibit is an exhibit entitled Organization of a PE Foundation. We'll mark that as Exhibit 7, and would you put page 2 of that exhibit on the projector, please?
Page 2 of that exhibit reads, the top of the exhibit, second sentence, never let anyone simply walk out. Convince him he's loony if he doesn't gain on it, because that's the truth.
And Exhibit A is a policy, HCO policy letter of 15 August 1960, under the heading Department of Government Affairs. Would you put page 2 of that on the overhead projector, please?
Reading from page 2, third paragraph, in the face of danger from governments or courts, there are only two errors one can make. A, do nothing. Third paragraph down. In the face of danger for governments or courts, there are only two errors one can make. A, do nothing, and B, defend. The right things to do with any threat are to, 1, find out if we want to play the offered game or not. 2, if not, to derail the offered game with a feint or attack upon the most vulnerable point which can be disclosed in the enemy ranks. 3, make enough threat or clamor to cause the enemy to quail. 4, don't try to get any money out of it. 5, make every attack by us also sell Scientology. And 6, win. If attacked on some vulnerable point by anyone or anything or any organization, always find or manufacture enough threat against them to cause them to sue for peace.
I just want to say something there. This is stuff that we've studied. I hope that leaves some credibility to some of the things I've been saying. I mean, policy is to investigate you people. If you can't find anything, then you plant the dope on them. You either find or manufacture, but crimes must be attributed to you people. If they're not, the people at Fort Harrison will wonder. You must be decent people. The only thing that keeps people at Fort Harrison from giving the money is Scientology tells them that you're criminals. And if they can't find it, they will manufacture it. And it's there in politics.
Just to make it perfectly clear, you're saying that this is well understood in the GO and in the high-tech levels, that this encourages or induces or condones criminal activities such as burglary.
Sir, this is not only understood, this is studied and play demoed and diagrammed until you have it down pat.
And of all the examples you gave of extortion and burglaring and casing, this policy is something that induced you to do it?
Yes, this is one of many.
This is encouraged?
The surface so far.
This is encouraged and you get points for this?
Yes.
And this runs throughout the policy notebook?
Right.
The next exhibit, number 9, is an example of an SP list.
And you'll note on that list there are various people who have been assigned freeloader in various places. And that corroborates the testimony of Mr. Walters with regard to freeloader debts. If you have any questions, he could probably give you a 20-minute address on that subject alone.
The lend validity to this, Al Adcock, I know him, Liz Bucky, on staff with it, Gail, going down the line, Culpepper, Gary Davis. Gary Davis was an auditor and left. This is what they did to him. They gave him a freeloader's list. John Degree ended up paying off all his freeloader's debt and came down here to Clearwater, I believe. John Gallagher, I know. Charlie Groff, longtime Scientologist, who they won't let him back on until he pays all the money they want. Lynn Hearn, longtime Scientologist, still paying off in order to get back in. These are all people I know.
Mr. Walters, do you believe that there are such lists now that are current, 1982?
Absolutely. There's a list that according to Tech would have come out this month, right here from Fort Harrison. And if you had any authority to have them give it to you, they would give it to you.
Who would this go to, Mr. Walters?
It comes from the Division 3, which is the financial division, and it's issued through an ethics order. As you see at the top, it says HCO ethics order. This is to tell, it is broadly published. It is sent to them individually. That's why it says to those concerned, because when the guy sees this, he knows that he's got to pay to get back in. It is also sent to all the Scientologists and the orgs so that we know not to communicate with these people. They're Scientologists not in good standing.
As the hearings progress, the legal significance of the freeloader's debt in connection with other documents, which I won't presuppose, will become apparent.
Will you also show that this freeloader's debt has, within the last year, been acted upon, or other people? This is 1972. Can you give a specific example of one or freeloader's debt that has occurred in this year, or will someone come forward and describe it?
There will be a great deal of evidence on the subject.
If in our discussion with you here, if we're asking you questions that will be covered more fully later by another witness, just let us know and we will not dwell on that particular aspect. But at this time,
Exhibit 10 is HCO Policy Letter 5 April 1965, and the specific portion that I'm referring to is going to be what they call the blown student doctrine, about which Mr. Walters testified concerning going and picking up a student.
Blow means to try and leave the premises.
I read that middle paragraph, the blown student. Student, however, may have blown off the premises, or he has gone entirely. On a minor momentary blow, where all it took was the student's auditor and a few words to get the student back, the matter is not a real blow. But where the student leaves the premises in a blow or doesn't turn up for class, the tech division must send an instructor and the student's auditor over to HCO, Department of Inspection and Reports. An HCO representative should go with them at once to pick up the student. The student is brought back with as little public commotion as possible, and the procedure of HCO checkout, etc., is followed as above.
all right, can this happen to any of these kids that walk up and down the street with the blue pants and the white shirt?
Yes.
If they want to blow, they're brought back by the auditor forcibly and the inspector.
The person's auditor, who they have been...
So any of these kids can't just keep walking. They're walking up and down the street. We have these young, they all appear to be young. They walk between the various buildings in the uniform of the day, which is the white and the blue. They can't just keep walking then. These kids can be picked up by these auditors.
If they blow, if they are going to lunch, if they do not come back from lunch, somebody will go get them.
They can't walk to the bus station, get on a bus, and go back home to Miami.
Well, they could if the org didn't know about it.
But if they did, with the order to go to Miami and pick them up and return them?
Instructions are there, and those instructions are followed explicitly. If you don't follow them, I'm the tech division. If I don't do what that says, I'm an enemy. I tell you, I go get the guy.
Did you ever physically bring someone back? You were an auditor. Did you ever physically bring someone back?
Yes.
Against their will?
Yes, in Las Vegas.
Did you ever see other people do it? Is it a common occurrence?
Well, I wouldn't say it's common. It's not a daily occurrence.
But it is done.
Yes, it has to be done. You're not allowed to leave unhappy, upset, where you might go to the authorities.
Even if it's against their will. Physically, you restrain them or bring them back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, pardon me, that brings another question in my mind. Suppose the struggle gets so intense you can't get him back. You tell me this has to be done. Now, to me, I tell you I'm not coming back. Do whatever you wish and proceed to resist you, or run, or duck, or hide thereafter.
Good question. But Ron Hubbard is a very clever man. If you look at line, second paragraph of the blown student, second line. The tech division must send an instructor and the student's auditor. In other words, the auditor knows this fellow inside out. Remember, he's the guy who knows who he's doing what to who and blah, 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 blah. He will remind him of this and he will come back. If he does not come back, policy says to do it with as little public commotion as possible. Then you leave him there because you cannot create a flap yourself, otherwise you'll be in trouble. Then you give it to the guardian's office. See, the tech fails. Now you give it to the guardian's office and they'll handle it.
Mr. Walters, this is one of the questions I asked you this morning. In your own appraisal and own thoughts, when you were bringing somebody back against their own will, you didn't look upon that as being something close to kidnapping?
Well, I never even looked at it from a legal point of view, sir. I looked at it that the man was upset, that he was confused, that he's probably been talking to suppressives like police or things, and we had to get him back to save him. I mean, I believed in what I was doing.
And there's a policy restraint that defines it as that you can bring these people back either morally, using the auditing information, or physically.
I have to bring him back. If I don't, I fail.
But that's lined out in the policy called restraint, a definition of restraint.
There's more to come. Everything you do, I'm telling you, is outlined.
Well, I think what Mr. Walters is saying, if you read the third from the last paragraph, if they can't get the student back, they blame the auditor.
That's right. And then it goes to the guardian's office.
And the guardian.
That's right.
The auditor becomes an enemy.
Right.
That's exactly right. And I get checked for why I did not bring him back. It's not a winning game, I'll tell you.
You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right.
The next exhibit is entitled Level Zero Check Sheet, a book written by L. Ron Hubbard. Reading from page 54 of Exhibit 11, Mr. Hubbard's book. The defense of anything is untenable. The only way to defend anything is to attack. If you ever forget that, then you will lose every battle you are ever engaged in, whether it is in terms of personal conversation, public debate, or court of law. Never be interested in charges. Do yourself much more charging and you will win. And the public, seeing that you won, will then have a communication line to the effect that Scientologists win. Don't ever let them have any other thought than that Scientology takes all of its objectives. Again, on page 55, the purpose of the suit is to harass and discourage rather than to win. The law can be used very easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who is simply on the thin edge anyway, well knowing that he is not authorized, will generally be sufficient to cause his professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin him utterly.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's interesting. I received in the mail today a copy of a item apparently from the church that says wins, wins, wins on anonymously sent to me, and I'm copying to you today, which relates specifically to this.
might add that when we hired you, or at least we considered hiring you, and we spent $4,950, they were in front of City Hall passing out almost posters offering $4,950, leading to the arrest and conviction of any dishonest politician. Well, that almost had my name on it and my colleagues' names on it, or a public official. And I'm sure that every one of us may at one time have had an enemy within a city employee. There must be 1,600 of them. But we couldn't do that to them, nor will we want to do that to them. So I could just see it's how affecting our own lives as recently as when we originally contacted you in your office. I can see it falling into place there.
In addition, when we originally contacted Mr. Flynn, they also passed around, maybe you'd like to comment on this, Mr. Flynn, a version of your background, your credentials, your purported disbarments or transgressions that you've made that put you in a very uncredible light. Was there any truth to that? Could you go into that so that the people here know that this happened within the last 5-6 months, from your own personal experience?
Well, I'm not a witness, and it would probably be inappropriate. The degree of harassment, the numbers of lawsuits against myself and my colleagues, the bar complaints that have been filed against us, the defamatory statements that have been issued in the press against us, and the 3 years of what I can only categorize unmerciful harassment will someday be a matter of a court record and will be litigated.
All right, thank you. Continue, please, sir.
The next exhibit is a document entitled Introduction to Scientology Ethics, a Xerox copy from the book that was referred to. And Mr. Green will read from a portion of it.
This exhibit, Exhibit 12, is a book by L. Ron Hubbard. On page 49, he sets forth high crimes, which are suppressive acts, parentheses below that title. A suppressive person or group is one that actively seeks to suppress or damage Scientology or Scientologists by suppressive acts. Suppressive acts are acts calculated to impede or destroy Scientology or Scientologists, and which are listed at length below. And below, listed as number 1, proposing, advising, or voting for legislation or ordinances, rules, or laws directed towards the suppression of Scientology. 2, testifying hostilely before state or public inquiries into Scientology to suppress it. 3, public statements against Scientology or Scientologists, but not the committees of evidence duly convened. To recall, a committee of evidence is a Scientology term. 7, testifying as a hostile witness against Scientology in public. 8, being at the hire of anti-Scientology groups or persons, and so forth.
On number 9, infiltrating Scientology. I can't understand why it would be a crime to infiltrate Scientology. However, it's well documented that they infiltrated the former mayor's staff when he ran for election. They infiltrated the Clearwater Sun, the district attorney's office, attorney Mr. Russell. Is this common? They say that this is a crime to them, but yet they, as policy, go out and do it. Why is that?
Because these are really Hubbard's fears listed, is what I've finally come to realize. These are Hubbard's fears. And he uses his fears and his demented mind to attack other people with. And obviously number 9 is in there because he would not want people coming into Scientology like an IRS agent to find out where the money goes, etc. That would be a high crime.
Next. Exhibit 13 is a document entitled TRL, Intelligence Specialist Training Routine. this particular document may have a great deal of importance to this committee if the Scientologists produce witnesses.
Intelligence Specialist Training Routine, TRL. Purpose: to train the student to give a false statement with good TR1. To train the student to outflow false data effectively. Position: same as TR1. Commands. Part 1. Tell me a lie. Command given by coach. Part 2. Interview Type 2 WC by coach. Training stress. In Part 1, coach gives command. Student originates a falsehood. Coach flunks for out TR or TR1 or TR0. In Part 2, coach asks questions of the student on his background or subject. Student gives untrue data of a plausible sort that the student backs up with further explanatory data upon the coach further questions. The coach flunks for out TR0, TR1, and for student fumbling on question answers. Student should be coached on a gradient until he or she can lie fastly. Short example. Coach: where do you come from? Student: I come from the Housewives Committee on Drug Abuse. Coach: but you said earlier that you were single. Student: well, actually, I was married, but I am divorced. I have 2 kids in the suburbs where I am a housewife. In fact, I'm a member of the PTA. Coach: what town is it that you live in? Student: West Brighton. Coach: but there is no public school in West Brighton. Student: I know. I send my children to school in Brighton, and that's where I'm a PTA member. Coach: oh, and who is the chairman there, etc.
Again, is this in the procedures manual?
No. These are our guardian's office technology. That will not be in public volumes.
How did you obtain this document for submission as an exhibit?
This particular document comes from documents that the Federal Bureau of Investigation seized in July 1977, along with the next one. A document entitled Ray Intelligence.
This is Exhibit 14, Ray Intelligence. The following are possibilities for collecting data. 1, infiltration. 2, bribery. 3, buying information. 4, robbery. 5, blackmail. The last 2 are, of course, illegal. Infiltration covers 2 methods: someone joining the enemy without the enemy's knowing, and someone disaffecting, presumably, to join the enemy. For giving the enemy false data, you can do the following. 1, use infiltrator to spread alarm and false data. 2, send out false data purposely.
A scenario: the upcoming election for City Commission, or the recent election for Ms. Garvey or Mr. Burfield. You mean to tell me that it would be not only within the realm, but a distinct possibility that not only false data would be disseminated to do harm or take votes away from these 2?
Yes, I can tell you from the tech of probably what would probably occur. That, by the way, dear Mo, is Mo Budlong.
Wasn't he indicted?
Yes, he was. As far as your elections in this town, a girl will go around to citizens, tell she's writing a book, and she will say, like, I'm writing a book about Clearwater, it's a great thing, and are you aware of Mr. Calderbank? Yeah. And somewhere going into that will mention, did you know about the problems that he had in the last place he lived? No, I didn't. Are you not aware of his West record? No, I didn't. Well, then, that's okay. And just do a slight little interview and go from person to person. It may sound nutty, but it's very effective. Before you know it, the citizens will all be saying to themselves, did you hear what I hear about Calderbank?
Would they encourage passing out of either illegal pamphlets or try to raise some kind of conflict between the other commissions?
Yes. In fact, they will have persons send dead agent letters to different ones of you. Persons in ethics will do those.
Okay, we're trying to move right along because we do have a long way to go.
Along those lines, I would point out that attached to the report that we filed with the city are perhaps 4,000 or 5,000 documents, and we have simply selected a few that are just barely representative. And these documents are on file with the city of Clearwater and have been since September of 1981. And what we attempt to show you is just some of the documents pertaining to some of the activities, but there are literally thousands of these. And some of the direct policies with regard to burglary and larceny will be coming up, which we'll try to show in a little more detail on the issue of policy. But many of these documents, there's just so many of them that it's difficult to get them all before the commission in this proceeding. The next document is Exhibit 15. And it's a document called Ray B&Ds. And you'll notice in the upper, in the upper left-hand corner, the people, as Mr. Walters will describe, or the agencies to whom it goes within the church, which I might suggest to you could bear on the factor of corporate policy.
Those are the top leaders of the church: Deputy Garden 1, U.S. Communicator; Deputy Garden 1, U.S., Deputy U.S. Communicator; Deputy Garden U.S., which is in Los Angeles. I don't know what GDA. Anyway, that's Worldwide, which is in England. That's her communicator. Guardian Worldwide, which is Jane Kemper. Deputy Guardian 1, Worldwide, which is in England. Deputy Guardian 1, Worldwide, is in England. Deputy Garden 1, Worldwide. Assistant Deputy Garden. U.S. Director, Secretary Worldwide is again in England. Bureau 1, Director U.S., that's in Los Angeles.
Reading from Exhibit 15, Ray B&Es. When Dick first wrote you on this subject, a few of us in the office had been comparing notes and smatterings of legal knowledge on this subject, with the end result of deciding we needed to research the differences between breaking an entry and unlawful entry. Upon searching through legal dictionaries and various legal sources, I discovered in West's California Penal Codes, parentheses, which except for varying technical differences by state is representative of the basic U.S. statewide laws on this subject, close parentheses, what the technical differences between the B&E and unlawful entry become relatively meaningless when it can be seen that a large portion, if not the majority, of our high priority successful collections actions fall into the category of second-degree burglary, which is a felony. Some of our successful collections actions in the recent past and present, which fall into this category, are passed GO 1222, GO 1300, GO 1361, GO 1344, GO 1080, YOCO, DEA, present GO 1361, GO 1344, DEA. This is not an exhaustive rundown, just enough to demonstrate the importance. The last sentence. From my study of the codes and from my knowledge of how the collections actions are done, one of the key points in solidifying the burglary commission is basically the theft of Xerox paper and Xerox machine use of whatever is approached. Without this theft, then the distinction between B&E and unlawful entry would become important and could mean the difference between a felony and misdemeanor.
The next document is a document called Vetting Hat Write-Up, which Mr. Walters referred to in his testimony, which will be, for the record, Exhibit 16.
Exhibit 16, Vetting Hat Write-Up. The purpose is set forth on the document, quote, to clean USB-1 files of legally actionable evidence against the GO and its personnel, and then set forth as a definition of evidence. Something legally presented before a court as a statement of a witness, an object, etc., which bears on or establishes the point in question, distinguished from testimony and proof. The valuable final product, the files free of illegal evidence. Steps taken to vet a file cabinet, drawer, or box. 1. Take one file folder at a time to vet from a bunch of folders. 2. Scan through each particle in the file and vet each one as it comes up. A. Using a razor blade, cut out all parts of reports written by us that would indicate something illegal was happening, already did happen, or was being planned. B. If the particle is then so cut up that it is impracticable to have in the files, staple it to a larger piece of paper and stick it in the file. C. If in order to properly vet a particle, some of the data of the report is lost, write up the data on a separate sheet and shred the first report. Make sure to note the date and originator, etc., of the origin. And D, if the report is an actual operation report and not just an account of covert data collections, do not vet the report. Rather, write the data down that is in the files and send the full report containing actual ops actions to ops. Page 2 of this same exhibit. Midway down the page, now the details of what you vet. 1. Mentions or the ordering of a B&E. 2. Evidence that anything was stolen by one of our guys. This does not mean someone like PC saying we stole something. This means us saying we stole something. 3. Lines similar to, here are the docs we got in our usual way late last night. 4. Implications of casing, including keeping checks on schedules and working hours, as well as locks on doors, etc. 5. Implications of posing as a government agent. 6. Evidence of tapping phone lines or illegal taping of conversations. 7. Mentions of harassment of an individual, although not necessarily a full operation. 8. Any evidence of bribery. 9. Any mentions of recruitments of FSMs to be any kind of an agent. This is solicitation and a crime. 10. Also vet wordings like, this will get him, or let's wipe him out, or this will be good for dead agenting, or we are planning a covert op on him to handle him, or this will strengthen our attack on him. 11. Any mentions of entrapment, setting up someone to commit a crime, either directly or indirectly.
The next exhibit, number 17, will be Ray Redbach.
Could I ask a question, what the date of this particular exhibit was, number 16?
9 March 75.
We only have a few more to go, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll conclude with any questions we may have of the consultant or the witness, and then we will take a very short break and then Mr. DeWolf will be in.
This exhibit has been marked as Exhibit 17 and refers to Redbox. If I could have page 2 placed on the overhead projector first, we'll see how Redbox data is defined by the corporation. Redbox data information sheet appears at the top of this page 2. 1. What is Redbox data? A. Proof the Scientologist is involved in criminal activities. B. Anything illegal that implicates MSH or LRH. C, large amounts of non-FOI, which I would suggest is freedom of information, docs. D, operations against any government, group, or person. E, all operations that contain illegal activities. F, evidence of incriminating activities. G, names and details of confidential financial accounts. 2, where is red box data kept? A, out-of-date material or finished cycles that can be shredded should be. B, large amounts of red box data that is not needed for day-to-day function, but cannot be destroyed, is located within all our non-FOI docs and can be called for via CIC. And C, small amounts of data that must be kept on hand due to security and frequent use, is to be kept in a briefcase, locked up, and is to be marked. Finally, 3, how is red box data kept on the B1 premises cared for? A, this data will be picked up and carried out of the building by owner immediately upon notification of a raid, search warrant, etc. B, persons carrying this data, as few as possible, will leave the premises and only return when they have called in and received an all clear.
Tom, will you describe the B1 group as it is defined, or Ed, and specifically what it does in the GO organization, Guardian Office organization?
B1, as I remember, is the intelligence bureau of the Guardian's office, now called Information.
What's their purpose?
Their purpose is to investigate, ferret out the enemy, expose, or if need be, create or manufacture evidence against the enemy.
I would also point out at this point that when the FBI seized some 80,000 documents from the Church of Scientology in July 1977, they missed by 2 days obtaining any red box data. All of the red box data that is referred to in this exhibit was not seized. It was missed by the FBI.
Why?
They didn't know its location at the time. And that is a matter of court record.
I'm intrigued that not only would they have policies that would condone criminal activities and then give points for successful criminal activities being carried out, but they also have a policy that they participate in that covers up criminal activities by members. Is this another policy that they utilize day in and day out?
Yeah, this is standard Guardian's office function. This is a lot. In the front of this book, you'll read all how nice it is to be good. This is what occurs.
Let's forget about religion. Let's forget about doctrines. This is conduct. This is the conduct that the policies induce people to do.
This is burglary, criminal actions by a group, planned, executed.
Mayor, Commissioners, that particular letter was dated the 25th of March, 1977.
But as far as you know, it is still going on. Now, I have had conversations with Scientologists, not recently, but certainly within the past year, who said that they no longer do these things. Again, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do they still do these things? They still act this way? Or is this ancient history that dates back to 1975 or 77?
Well, I can put it like this. I'm not here in Clearwater, so I can't tell you specifically. But what I'm talking about here today is the hallmark of Scientology. It is the technology of Scientology. For them to survive, it must be done.
When's the last time you saw these policies carried out? What was the date? What was the time?
I've seen them all through 70, 71, all the way up to 78, 79.
And you...
I had Cooper, Don Cooper, one of their intelligence agents, who's now down here in Florida, stole things out of my house that showed up with the lawyer.
When?
This was, well, the lawyer showed it to me 2 months ago in a deposition.
So you've had actual personal involvement and know these things are happening up to 2 months ago?
Absolutely. I saw them then and participated in them. Now they're being done to me. There is no change in this group at all, I'll tell you.
One more question. What would happen if, as of tomorrow morning, Scientologists, the Church of Scientology said, we will stop all these dirty tricks. We will rewrite our literature, and we will act like any other organization that is in business, and we will no longer, not to mention the religion, I don't want to bring that into it, and we will no longer engage in these tricks, and we will let Scientology fall or rise on its own merits and its teachings.
If they said that?
Yes.
Well, they're going to say that. PR will, they're already writing it right now. To me, it wouldn't mean anything.
But what if they did indeed do that? Would Scientology still be as powerful as it is?
I'll tell you what, I'll invite them to invite me to Fort Harrison. I'll be glad to give a lecture to all Scientologists there now. And if they can confront what I say and want to remain at Fort Harrison, I don't think you'll have any problem. I extend Scientology, talks about communication and goodwill. They can come and see me. They don't have to burglarize my home. They can come and see me anytime. I will be glad to go to Fort Harrison tonight and talk to all of the Scientologists.
What I'm really asking is, can Scientology succeed if they no longer use the enemies list, attack the attacker, and all these things that we have seen in the documents?
But then you wouldn't have Scientology.
In other words,
what would you have?
I don't know what you'd have. You wouldn't have the cult of Scientology. You'd probably have something new starting. I don't know. See, Scientology isn't all bad. If it was, you wouldn't have decent people entering it.
Yeah, but if you rewrote these articles, that you'd almost have to rewrite most of the ones that you were talking about involving fraud and misrepresentation and everything else.
You'd have to rewrite almost 80% of Scientology policy and probably 70% of the text.
So what then what would happen to their income?
They wouldn't have any income.
You're saying that these policies form a fabric that is interwoven over perhaps 70, as great as 80% of all their activities and conduct?
Yes.
And these policies call for criminal and fraudulent activity, which you have given examples of
To
repeatedly.
defeat the enemy. To defeat the enemy.
And if that means casing, burglarizing, manufacturing evidence, extortion, kidnapping.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen...
I'm just giving back to you the examples you've given to me.
Absolutely.
If I hear you correctly, Mr. Walter, you're saying regardless of whether they rewrite, they're not going to change. Is that the implication I hear?
No, because you're talking about a philosophy.
Right.
You're talking about
That's
Hubbard.
ingrained.
Yes. I welcome Mr. Hubbard to come here and sit with me now. If he could do this, you wouldn't have Scientology. See, if Reverend Jones could leave Guyana and come and talk to the congressman, you realize you wouldn't have a cult anymore, because he would have... You've got to handle the mental paranoia of Hubbard. Until that is done, you're going to have consistent defrauding of individuals and also criminal activities taken against perceived enemies.
So you're saying they couldn't exist without an income, without this doctrine or these teachings? They couldn't, well, they frankly couldn't exist without any money coming in. Is that what you're saying? They wouldn't get the money to exist worldwide?
No. Yeah. Well, it all depends. Most all the money is being made in Clearwater right now.
In Clearwater, all the money is, most of it for the supporting the whole operation is being made in Clearwater?
I would say Clearwater is the single primary source of most of the money coming in. The people who come to Clearwater are higher up, fully programmed and conditioned, and this is, they originally bought courses for $2,000. They're down now here giving $10,000, $20,000, and $30,000 at a time.
What do the poor people do?
Poor people are not in Scientology, or they join staff.
If you're poor, then you mean they only pick on the wealthy kids, and if you're poor, you've got to work for $17 a week or for nothing?
A wealthy person, that's a hot prospect.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do we have
today we've got two more, Mayor, and then two more documents, and then that will be the end of the documents for the day. Exhibit 18 is a document entitled Operations Definitions, which pertains to the drills that a guardian's office operative goes through as described by Mr. Walters in his earlier testimony with regard to framing or smearing someone, of which Mr. Green will read some.
We have a drill on the overhead projector. Recognizing basic effectiveness of plans Take into account effectiveness, security, legality, workability, etc. when making your decisions. Choose which basic plan is best. A. General scene. Person to restrain, remove Mr. Jones, employee in local government agency attacking the org. 1. Order hundreds of dollars worth of liquor in Jones's name and have it delivered to his home to cause him trouble and make the liquor store owner dislike him. 2. Call up Jones's boss and accuse Jones of being a homosexual. 3. Send Jones' boss evidence of Jones accepting bribes on his job with copies to police and local FBI. B. General scene, a psychiatrist who has instigated attacks on the org via police and press. 1. Exposes Nazi background to the press with evidence that he still attends local Nazi meetings. 2. Wake him up every night by calling him on the phone and threatening him. And 3. Send an FSM in to be a patient of his for a year to disperse the site during sessions. Finally, C. General scene, a newspaper executive, Clyde McDonald, who's behind local attacks. 1. Poison him while he's asleep so he'll never start another attack. 2. Make known to the paper's owner that McDonald is responsible for the paper's decreasing advertising revenues. 3. Spread a rumor around to the paper's employees that McDonald is communist. And 4. Put itching powder in McDonald's clothes so he'll scratch himself all day, thus preventing him from writing a story.
Where is McDonald today?
I don't know where McDonald is, but Paulette Cooper will be testifying before this commission.
Okay.
You could have the next page in this series.
I've got a personal example of that.
D and E. Let me direct your attention to E. General scene, a local Catholic bishop is causing many local attacks on the org. 1. Send several FSMs. You remember Mr. Walters testified that's a field staff member, over to the Catholic Church to swear at him in confessionals. 2. Connect him up to abortion and or pornographic activities. 3. Write the Pope an anonymous letter stating that the bishop is really a rabbi undercover. And 4. Spread a rumor around town that he's against air pollution.
I love it.
The next exhibit is called The Correct Use of Codes, which will be Exhibit 19.
Hey, Mike.
This is a guardian order as it appears on the top of the exhibit. If you could move the exhibit down, you'll see the guardian order and the date, September 17th, 1976. Mr. Walters can explain the routing form in the upper left-hand corner when I've completed. The correct use of codes. To ensure that coding is done correctly with the correct subjects coded and overcoding avoided, the following steps are laid down. Codes are used for the following general headings. 1. Incriminating, undercover, or disinformation, covert operations, and the like. Incriminating activities would include things like lobbying, where this is inhibited in nonprofit corporations. Also, money deals that might provoke government tax offices. 2. Things that we want unknown as connected to the Church of Scientology. Secret PR and B1 front groups. 3. Legal PR and B1 traffic on B1 floods. 4. Things that we want unknown LRH or MSH connected to. This is handled by coding their names. 5. Words or actions that would tend to dispute the fact that the C of S's motives are humanitarian, i.e. harass, eradicate, attack, destroy, annihilate, cave in, third party, spreading rumors, entrapment, trap or entrap, stir up the opposition. 6. Actions of confidential corporate tax bodies. Strategy, some B1 money, CSWs, and occasionally the names of accounts. 7, anything that gives specific and actual evidence that Scientology is in legal control of B6 type groups. These are groups that are separate legal entities of the Church of Scientology. And 8, admission to unpunished crimes and or incriminating data. This would mostly come on personnel lines. In addition to the above, there are certain things that get government customs upset and more curious about what is in the mail pack. These are such things as confidential, secret, highly confidential, top secret, very highly confidential, restricted, etc., written across the top of the particle.
Mr. Walters would just like to make one closing statement, and for today, that will be all the documentary evidence.
Before, I'd like to ask one more question. I have met most of the Scientologists as they come into town. They try and make a social call. And I said, I don't necessarily talk to them anymore unless they give me a false name and a false reason to be here. I met Reverend Whitman. Is that his name? Whitfield?
Kenneth Whitman.
Kenneth Whitman, who was a rather angelic-looking young man with a turned-around collar and a soft voice and a nice and easy manner. And he says that they no longer act that way, and he is the president of the church. And as the president, led me to believe that he calls all the shots. Is that true that Mr. Whitman, Reverend Whitman, the turned-around collar, does call all the shots in the church?
No, he does not. I'm sure if he says he's president, which would be a legal position to be in to protect L. Ron Hubbard. But Mr. Whitman and every Scientologist only does what L. Ron Hubbard wants to. Mr. Whitman doesn't know it now, but that probably will add a few years to his sentence if he gets any. I mean, Hubbard designs things so that it does not come back to him. Now, Kenneth Whitman, I personally do not know if he's involved in any of this. But I would assure you, as the president of the church, he is told exactly what to say, and a plan, in fact, to handle the city is drawn up exactly like this.
Mr. Walters, following up on that, would he, as being president of the church, have any control over the guardian's office?
No. It's a legal title. It's a PR title. He's the people that when you want to see the big boss, you'll get him. The guys who follow you at home are the guys running the show.
Does he normally walk around in his hometown with his turnaround collar, or does he wear regular street clothes?
Well, he's been so busy now because of everything going on, he's probably in legal mock-up, meaning a dress almost all the time. I've known him just very little. He's basically a very nice guy, very suited to what he does.
Mr. Calderbank, let's try and take a break before we have the other witness.
Very quickly, I've been waiting to ask either an ex-Scientologist this or a current Scientologist. Number one, tell me if these examples were in the paper, by the way. I was coming out after Mr. Flynn presented his report. Someone that I didn't know came up to my car and said, "Hello, you're such and such. I've seen your picture in the paper." And as it was reported by the paper, that person then said, "Does your sister," who my sister is a dentist in Pittsburgh, "does she worry about malpractice suits?" I got out of the car and asked him that, looked for another person, and he told me to get my hands off him, that he didn't know what I was talking about. About 2 weeks later, after notifying my sister's attorney, she had patients that came in with various ailments that would not follow her prescribed dental practices, and when she made them sign charts off, they left. In your opinion, which this has appeared in the paper, is this a coincidence?
It sounds to me like a very standard, good B1 operation.
Number two, a girl I met in a...
Wait, I don't know if we know that he knows that they are coming after your sister. That's really hearsay, and we should... And what's a B1?
Yeah.
That's intelligence.
And
that's intelligence.
That's intelligence. Well, we really don't know that.
I'm just taking his word that it happened.
Yeah, I know it. I believe it happened, but you don't know that.
Oh, no.
The reason why it happened.
He's only asking me my opinion from my experience.
Yes, I just don't want to get too far astray from what we're here for.
I know he's blaming everything on Scientology.
Now, would you like to make a final statement, sir?
Yes, I'd just like to close because we've been talking about such terrible things here, which, of course, is one of the reasons I came here. And I'm glad to do it as a citizen, and I'm glad to see that the truth will come out. If it's confronted and pursued long enough, it will. But I want you to know, and anybody listening, because the PR campaign against me will start tomorrow. I am not anti-religion. I am not looking to destroy anyone. I want to lead a good, decent life. I have many friends in Scientology. There are a lot of good, caring people. When I was in Scientology, I loved and admired L. Ron Hubbard. I admired a man who was in the war and got war injuries and healed himself, and he's confronting enemies and continually going on to create a worldwide game that everybody can win. I believed it. I loved it. Now that I am out and I'm learning the truth about it, I'm embarrassed by it. I want the truth to come out, but I am not in a vendetta. I care for Mr. Hubbard. It's going to be like Howard Hughes. He's going to end up in a lonely room, knocking himself off, until somebody who cares enough for him, instead of these Gestapo agents, somebody who cared for him, help him. I have no hatred for the individual. I loved him. I don't love him now, but I probably understand him better. If he's listening, I tell him, get in touch with me. I won't harm you. I'll help you. Do it now before you create a catastrophe here in Clearwater or injure the thousands of young people. Many Scientologists are good people. Most of them are. They've just been led astray. And even though you're going to hear some shocking things in the next few days, and I suggest you really do look into this cult of Scientology, there are a lot of good people, and some that I truly like and admire. And I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you for being a very courageous man and courageous witness, and we wish you well, no matter where life takes you from now on, sir. We will take a 10-minute break.